Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out the Vita version of 2064 Read-Only Memories. Just came out today, although by the time you see this it'll be yesterday. So I was a little bit surprised by this release myself, and that means there's something like 4 or 5 Vita games out this week, not to mention the demo for a certain magical Virtualon, so I'm going to be quite busy. But anyway, I've been playing this for about 3 hours, a little bit more than that. The game doesn't have a clock, so I've literally been keeping track with a couple of stopwatches on Google Chrome, and that's about as far as I've gotten. So we have a couple of things that I want to talk about before we actually go hopping into the game. This game is a very visual novel style game. Like, some people say it's comparable to Snatcher, but with the amount of progress I've made in the game so far, it's a lot more text and a lot less shooty things, which is a little bit disappointing, I gotta say, because the system they have in here seems okay, but we can't, unfortunately, be 100% sure about that. Let's go have a look at the controls. You've got options to turn the voiceover on and off, and obviously to change the 3 sound levels. This is actually kind of annoying, though, because you can't turn off certain voice actors, and we'll get into the problems with that shortly. We also have the ability to turn the screen shake on and off, which doesn't really make that much of a difference. I don't think in this game it's that bad. And then we've got controls, where we have the option to flip the GUI, which I think just makes it a little bit easier to use for people with the other hand by putting it on the other side. And the touchscreen option. The touchscreen option in this game is absolutely terrible, and you shouldn't bother to use it. Everything is really small in this game and very hard to touch on the screen for it, because most of the game takes place in this tiny-ass window, about the size of this grey panel that you see here, actually, which makes it very, very hard to tap anything accurately, and you'll end up often tapping the wrong option or the wrong thing trying to get to something else, so just use the buttons. Seriously, just use the buttons, they're easy to work with. So, I'm just going to load up a save here. Continue will also obviously put you back at your old save. So, I was actually at Chapter 3, and I probably would have preferred to start there, just because it might have been more exciting than Chapter 1 or 2. But, this game's save system is fucking retarded. So, here's what happened. I went and got to the end of Chapter 2, got the trophy and everything, and I was moving through the beginning of Chapter 3. The game prompts you between chapters to save frequently, because the game doesn't save for you. And when the new chapter starts, guess what? It puts you into an unskippable text scene, or dialogue scene, I should say, because they did add voice acting to this. And you can't skip it, nor can you save while the dialogue scene is going on. So I had to sit through, say, a 10 to 15 minute dialogue scene while this was happening. Guess what happened? In the middle of this unskippable, unsavable dialogue scene that I hadn't saved for at least an hour beforehand. I'll give you one guess, and here's a hint. C2128281. Anyway, let's load into the start of Chapter 2, or at least relatively close to the start of it, because seriously, for some reason they don't just let you save at any time. For some reason. I assume it's because their UI is kind of shit, but we'll get into that. So here we are in the main interface for the game. Yes, that is all you get to see. That's so bloody small. But nevertheless, let's go have a quick look at the controls and everything you can do here. So, use the D-pad to move between objects. The analog stick also works, but I don't know why you would use the analog stick, because it's relatively imprecise in this game. You can have a look around at everything. You can go to the right to decide to leave an area, open your items up, and check what they do. The headphones actually let you listen to the entire soundtrack, which is actually kind of a nice little thing, but you can also come here to look at your items, for example. Now, here's one of my major problems with the game's text. You can't change the speed of it, you can't make it instantly complete, and it's very hard to skip it, because the UI seems to have this weird lag going on about it, where it doesn't recognize the first time if you've pressed to make the text go all the way across, so you have to press it again, and then you have to press it a third time. So, for every time you want to, like, go through the text a little bit faster, you have to do that, and as far as I can tell, there's no automatic and no skip button. So you can't just put it down in the middle of a dialogue-heavy scene. No, you have to be either tapping away at the touchscreen or pressing the X button constantly. And if you want to skip everything to go through to find the game's multiple endings faster, that doesn't work either. Really, really shit. But anyway, I'm going to go and look at this guy. You've got 4 options when you can you got 4 options for basically everything. You can use an item on it, so I can try and use a pitcher of spoiled milk on the bed end for some reason. And you can also use it, or touch it, or whatever. You can also look at it. And in the case of people like Mr. I can't even remember his name, honestly, over there, you can talk to them. Yes, you can talk to inanimate objects, and it's not as funny as you might think. But anyway, so basic drill of the story so far is this robot here, this blue robot with the weird-ass head, is the world's first sentient robot, and his master's been kidnapped, more or less, and he's come into our domain via the usage of his creator's address book, and we basically, since we're an investigative journalist, we decide to go after the people who apparently tried to kidnap him from his apartment. So, there you go. That's pretty much it. No, I'm not joking. The majority of what they try to do here is, like, world building with the, you know, the external of the world, a lot like Valhalla. But there's not that much in the way of the actual plot as of yet. So, yeah, I'm just going to use the touchscreen. I'm literally just putting the Vita down and letting it go for a bit. I wish I could give you a better, like, selection of the voice acting in this game, because, seriously, the amount of dialogue in this game is ridiculous, and finding a cutscene that has a lot of people talking to each other at once just isn't a thing in this game. You're always having one-on-one discussions, at least early on. So, it just... a lot of this dialogue goes on forever, and a lot of it is... well, let me put it this way. They love to... how do I put this? You do also have a lot of questions and stuff, but we'll get into how the dialogue system works in a bit. The writing just seems to enjoy taking a lot of time to get not that much anywhere. It's pretty slow, if I'm going to be honest with you. At least the characters all seem to have their own little hints of personality, and a bunch of the characters do have their own backstories that you can either A, ask them about, or B, just leave them alone. Although there are some characters that they force you to listen to the backstories of. Kind of annoying, but I mean, to be fair, it's the plot, so I'm not going to argue too heavily against it. And the voice acting, well, some of the voice acting is actually really good. Like, Fairlight here, Dr. Fairlight, he is actually a pretty good voice actor. I believe him when he's talking, more or less, in the sense that, you know, I believe the actor's trying to play the character. Same with Turing, the main robot. He's with you the majority of the game, and he's talking to you pretty much all the time. Well, to be fair, this game's got a weird sense of who's a he, who's a she, and who's a they, so I don't know if it's a he, a she, or a they, but he sounds like a little boy. Although it's kind of annoying because it's the Ash Ketchum, Bart Simpson syndrome where he's actually played by a woman, so you don't know for sure.
Do I have hard feelings?
But either way, voice acting, still pretty good. No argument from me. A couple of other characters you run into are okay. Like, Jess, the person who you actually end up helping out in this chapter. Yeah, she's okay. I mean, not as skilled as you might expect from someone like Fairlight or Turing. And then you've got Zoe Quinn and Jim Sterling. And let me tell you something about those two. Neither of them can act. I had the same problem with Jim Sterling back in Plague Road. He could not act that to any degree whatsoever, and it's the same in this one. When he starts talking, you know it's Jim Sterling trying to be someone, but just ending up being Jim Sterling anyway. His voice is just way too recognizable. That's kind of the problem. And then you've got someone like Zoe Quinn, who, well, despite what people might say about Zoe Quinn, including me, not a very good voice actor either way. I don't believe her in the slightest. So the voice acting overall in this game is a mixed bag. A massive mixed bag. And that's kind of disappointing, because when you can get as good voice actors like this guy here, and the narrator, who showed up for like 30 seconds at the beginning of the game and then just never spoke again, then you end up with people like Zoe Quinn and Jim Sterling. It's just disappointing. It's just massively inconsistent, and it really draws me out of the game. I've been here for bloody 7 minutes in this one conversation. This is starting to get annoying. I'm just gonna start tapping because, seriously, this is ridiculously slow. So,
Said that she had
might as well start talking about the world building. Like, I'm positive there's no skip button. Hold R, hold L, hold square, hold triangle, hold select, hold start. No, there's no skip button. I didn't think so. I didn't look for one.
perhaps I
Do you know what became?
Anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna tap the screen as fast as I possibly can. This is the fastest you can go through the game's text, which is really annoying. Come on, surely you guys have played some Japanese VNs from bloody the 2000s. Like, I know Snatcher is a really old game, and this game is so clearly, like, inspired by Snatcher
the chair you find
that it's, you know, it's extremely obvious. Like, this is the Snatcher UI, the Snatcher text style, the Snatcher style of dialogue. It's like, I really do need to go back and play Snatcher. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah,
the hospital.
you would think they'd bring in a couple of enhancements from visual novels that they've had for ages, but yeah. What else do I have to talk about? Because seriously, we're going to be here for a while before I can talk to another voice actor, which won't be too long, but it's still going to be a little bit. The dialogue system, that's right. So, the dialogue system is, well, it's fine. I mean, it's your typical dialogue system, right? You've got a couple of options. Usually when you've got, like, two options that'll go in significant directions, it's entirely obvious. And then you've also got, sometimes when you're talking to characters, you'll have like 3 options that all turn out to be yes, but
I suppose
like, you saw all 3 options there if you, like, go back and pause the video for like the 2 seconds that those were up. But you saw that the 3 options were, they all go in the same direction, but one's the friendly response, one's the neutral response, and one's the asshole response. So, that's just, it is something that kind of bugs me about this game, because that happens in this game constantly. Like, seriously, it's basically just that all the way through. There doesn't seem to be any subtlety. There doesn't seem to be any subtlety whatsoever. It's just kind of annoying. And yes, that guy is indeed named Leon Decker. If that isn't an obvious Blade Runner reference, I don't know what is.
I'll get it. I'll be in contact.
Yeah, so you can stick around and asking questions, and just for the purpose of letting you hear a little bit more voice acting, I'll just let this one question go before we go downstairs, but yeah, it's,
Prevent a full deployment of the mesh
yeah, as I said, it's a real mixed bag. So I might as well start talking about the world building, because the world building is definitely something that this sort of game tries to sell itself on. And here's my problem. This game doesn't feel like its own separate world. I mean, I know it's not supposed to be, but at the same time, you're giving me a poke into a potential alternate future here. And there are 2 ways you can go with this. You can go a little bit silly and a little bit off the typical track of, like, human development and try and create its own little universe. Or you can tie this back into the real world. You can tie this back into the real world in multiple different ways by having references to modern day things and all sorts of things like that. This game very clearly went for the second route. It has a lot of modern day references. It's kind of... what's the word I'm looking for?
What the hell?
Alright, yeah, we got another voice actor, so I'll let you listen to her for a bit. But,
I can't believe that you're still pulling
yeah,
the exact same shit
you've
you
got
were
a
years
lot
ago.
of references to the real world. It's like, we're gonna be talking to these medical bots in order to get out of our, hospital stuff here.
It's a felony.
And it's so clearly a reference to the modern day American health system that it feels on the nose. And there's a fair few things like that that's going on. Especially with, especially with a couple of other things in the game. Like, don't get me wrong, it seems like there's one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way, and some people are probably going to get pissed off at me about this, but, you know, I don't know why they would, it's kind of irrelevant, but at the very beginning of the game, well, not the very beginning, but towards the beginning of the game, you get asked what your pronouns are, and then you get asked what your diet is. Oh, you also get asked your name to get referred to, but since people, since it's all voice acted, it just means that they blank out your name after a certain point. So, to be fair, I'd actually be more of a fan of keeping your name, like,
I think
what's the
I'll
word?
tell you
On the
whole
down
truth.
low? That'd make things slightly more interesting. Just make it look like you're in the point of
Depends on
view.
your hat, though, metaphorically.
But yeah,
I
they
know
feel the
ordinary
need to
wrong, but
put your
actually
pronouns
also
next to
like
your
design
diet, and I haven't seen the diet come up
machine.
yet. I don't know why they feel the need to ask you your diet. That is such a weird thing.
Hayden's disappearance, beyond his
And it's
vision,
obviously a bit of a reference to the whole sort of gender politics thing going on in the modern day and all that. And they are trying to tie it into... tie the same situations into this world here as well. Like, they've started doing, what's the word I'm looking for? Genetic modifications to human beings, to the point where people who have things like skin cancer, for example, get treatment, like genetic treatment, and end up looking like freaks, and then they end up going for more genetic treatment to the point where they can't actually have children anymore. And I think it's trying to tie it back into like modern day gender politics, which makes absolutely no sense because gender politics and gene therapy are not the same thing, and it just doesn't sit right. It really doesn't. And I don't know why they're trying to go for it here, because the two are clearly meant to be different subjects. It just doesn't work.
Someone higher up in the department.
There are, of course, a couple of other things as well, and there are a couple of things that are, again, on the nose that aren't related to that. Like, you meet someone who's clearly an otaku later in the chapter, but they are, yeah, they are just so on the nose about it that it doesn't make for an interesting character. There are one or two more interesting people that show up, but it's just weird how everyone you meet is willing to spill their backstory out to you.
But when I filled out the missing person report, I was informed in no
At least it feels weird. I mean, in this game you're an investigative journalist, and when I was playing this game, all I could think of was Valhalla. Valhalla, cyberpunk bartending action. At least it made sense for people to come in and spill the beans on everything, because you could get them so drunk they'd pass out on the floor, and that literally happens at one point in that game. It's just so odd. And it doesn't feel like you have relationships with a couple of people. Like, there are a couple of people who are implied that you've met them, like Lexi here, and it doesn't feel like you have a relationship with Lexi, despite your discussions with her. And compare that to, like, Valhalla, where you very clearly have a relationship with Jillian and your boss, and you start developing relationships with people who come in, and of course the child robot prostitute. You know, the day I can stop bringing that up is the day that life becomes uninteresting. But in this game, it just doesn't seem to be handled as well. I guess it's just a weakness of the writing. The writing just doesn't seem to be doing much for me in the grand scheme of things. They don't seem to be able to handle the questions they're bringing up, at least at this point in the game, particularly well. And that's disappointing. I'm just going to start hammering away at this right now, because I'm serious. These conversations are ridiculously long. So, yeah, it's not particularly, but to be fair, this is a relatively accurate portrayal of the game, at least in the first two chapters. You spend an absolute ton of fucking time talking to people. There's not much in the way of gameplay. There are puzzles, but they are stupidly simple. It's usually just a couple of interactions away. And there doesn't seem to be any way to fail, which is okay, I guess, but honestly, I think you'd be better suited turning this into a visual novel just straight up, instead of making it Snatcher style. You do have the ability to, like, change locations and stuff like that, but, you know, that's nothing particularly impressive. We do have, like, one puzzle coming up here, but, you can see that I'm just tapping away. This is super slow.
I'll be in touch if I find
but yeah, you can...
out. Back to the grind, I guess.
There just isn't that much to do, gameplay-wise. At least, Valhalla kept things really interesting by...
You should talk to the receptionist and formally...
At least Valhalla kept things interesting by making it so that you brewed alcoholic drinks and gave you a little bit of challenge to make sure you didn't do anything wrong. Same thing with the upcoming Papers, Please, which I definitely will be buying again if I can't get press code for it, because Papers, Please gave you some interesting gameplay on top of an interesting set of stuff to do. This game doesn't seem to want to do either of those things.
My records indicate that you have been admitted for possible
So it's
cranial
just...
trauma.
I'm disappointed. I am really disappointed. I mean, after having played Valhalla, and after having done a little bit of research on 2064 and finding that there are actually like there's a little bit of crossover here and there.
An accidental discharge of a weapon is a serious event. I must insist that you remain for treatment.
But
even non-lethal stunners.
Yeah, after having played that and hearing that some people, thought of this game the same way they did Valhalla, I was looking forward to it at the very least. Downtrodden a bit by the fact that the developer went on Twitter and said, if you voted for Trump, go fuck yourself, don't play my game. That probably should have been a sign that this game isn't exactly on par with Valhalla.
Should your condition persist or worsen.
But yeah, what else is there to say about it, at least in the story side of things? I mean, as I said, I haven't played through the entire game, so I can't possibly know what it turns into, and it does have like 5 endings or something like that. There was your reference to,
Lastly, you will be required to provide payment or proof of private insurance for any further visits.
There was your reference to the,
medical care.
American medical care system, by the way.
All forms.
Your medical billing makes... You should look for more paying Before we leave, we should look for...
Yeah, Leon Decker. I wonder who Decker is. Is it this guy? D-pad. Wrong direction. There we go. Is it this guy? I think it's this guy. Yeah.
Hello. The name's Leon Decker. It's a pleasure to meet you.
So, I might as well talk about the presentation and the... Yeah, the presentation. I was gonna say the presentation and the sound, but I count sound as part of the presentation, so...
Thanks for taking He really gets in one of his moods.
It looks alright. Like, I can appreciate the quality of some of the art they got going on here. It's not gonna look great blown up on a screen from a 960 by 540 screen, but... when you're looking at it in, like a... It'd be like 2-3 inch at this point on the Vita screen. When you're looking at it that, the art looks pretty good, and the facial animations they've got over on the right there are pretty good. Like, nothing wrong with them. They actually look pretty nice, and they give a little bit of personality to all of the characters. And the soundtrack is alright as well, but I mean, it feels like pretty generic cyberpunky stuff. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I really shouldn't have gone into a chat with this guy.
I grew up in Montana on a family farm. Came home looking to do something a whole lot. I didn't know at the time how boring quiet could be. But hey, I'll take it over getting shot at.
But yeah, the presentation is fine. For the most part, anyway.
You think sitting in that chair all
And then, of course, we have to talk about the performance. Now...
You know,
back when they first announced this, there was no sign there was any problems whatsoever for Vita. We're talking like 2 years ago at this point, right? We're talking a pretty long time ago. They said there wasn't going to be any problems. Then they started hinting that there might be some problems.
Started when I was just out of the
and they they were like, we're probably not going to be able to get this done. And then they did officially say,
no problem.
We can't get this done.
If you know. You have a good day now.
So, they actually cancelled the game. Just outright.
Well,
for like a week. I don't really know why it was only a week. But they did. And then they announced that they might actually be able to get it out on Vita. And then they they out and out put it out. Like... on the day of, like, the PlayStation experience. More or less. Just straight up launched it. I got it for free because I emailed them months ago saying, like, hey, can I get a review code? And they were like, yeah, sure, here's a PS4 copy, because when we release the PlayStation Vita copy, you'll get it on cross-buy. And don't forget, it's on sale, so if you want to tell your viewers about that, actually, I don't think they put that in the email, but that is something they did. They encouraged people to buy it, then they cancelled it, and then they uncancelled it. Which, to be fair, really pissed a lot of people off at the time, and I felt for them something crazy. Nevertheless, we'll just go talk a little bit more to a couple more people, just because we can. I mean, we've been at this for 25 minutes, but there's actually no puzzles to solve for a while yet, so there's like, I'm not gonna bother going and doing that. Might as well talk about the puzzles. The puzzles are really simple. They are never more than a couple of interactions away from being solved. I'm pretty sure I said that in this video already, but I'm just gonna... Allow me to emphasize that. Every puzzle is always a couple of steps away from being solved. There you go. Do I want to talk to the gay bartenders, or do I want to go and actually do the... You know what, I'll go talk to the gay bartenders. At least I think they're gay. Like, you want to try and tell me that these two aren't gay? Like, seriously, it's giving off massive vibes for it. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying before I got interrupted, see what I mean about the touchscreen interface? It's fucking useless. D-pad. We will talk to Majid.
Hey, good to see you back. What can I do for you?
Actually, am I allowed to talk to him? Yeah. We'll see if just killing some time does anything. Thankfully, all the voices are... Thankfully, there's a lot of voice lines, so whatever. Yeah, there it is! I knew it. Knew they were gay.
He's been running around all over the United looking for new acts.
That's so dumb. Oh, I'm sorry.
Being behind the counter.
That was weird. But, yeah, as I was saying about the performance before I got interrupted by figuring out whether or not these two were gay. As I said, the whole thing with having to press, like, the button to get the text to skip, like, 3 times is...
That's what
I think it's a performance problem. At least that's what I think it is. It doesn't recognize the first press, and I think that's a performance problem, because that's what it just feels like. I'm not going to claim that it is. It just doesn't feel like something they would program into their game purposefully. It doesn't seem like something they do at all. Right. Let's not touch them. Let's talk to them instead.
Sorry, I don't think we've met before. I'm Gus.
These two are overly happy for bartenders, I gotta say.
Wrong.
For what I know about bartenders, but yeah. Combine the performance issues with crashes. Like, I've only had one crash, but the fact that I've had even one crash in a scene that I couldn't save in the middle of is horrible, and no. Jump off a bridge if you think that's a good idea. So yeah, not particularly great, I gotta say.
To finally live somewhere more thrilling.
I imagine that if there's gonna be a better version of this game where you don't want to risk crashes, they are actually putting a better one out on the Switch, but... Well, let's just summarize what I think about this game so far. It's not particularly great. The writing isn't very good and the world building isn't great because it sticks too close to our world and just a unique, unusual world that you could create by throwing us 50 years into the future. The presentation is... It's a mixed bag at times. Like, it looks fine, but the voice acting is anywhere from pretty good to pretty bad. The overall plot isn't particularly interesting so far. It's really slow. It doesn't have much in the way of interesting gameplay, unlike Valhalla or every Japanese visual novel ever, like 999. And it's just not working for me. In the grand scheme, it's just not working for me. I'm not enjoying it that much, and I got bored like an hour ago, and then the game crashed on me, and when I thought to myself, do I want to go through the effort of doing the rapid 3-tap in order to get to chapter 3 again, to try and show off something more interesting? I thought to myself, no, I don't want to put in the effort, I'm not interested enough in the game to put in the effort. If that doesn't tell you what I think about this game, then, well, I'm not sure what will. You've been listening to me for about half an hour at this point. So, I would hope that you would get the general idea.
I'm gonna get back to this, but
so,
don't feel bad if you need to interrupt me for something.
Would I recommend it? Not really. I mean, even if they did patch out the performance stuff and all that, it's just not as interesting of a world or just a game as I would have hoped. But, I mean, let me put it this way. if you've played Snatcher, now, Snatcher is a weird game in the sense that it's a, you know, it's a cyberpunky style thing as well, but there is more action in the first, like, hour or so of Snatcher. At least I think it was the first hour. The part where you go into the house and there's the dog that tries to, or, you know, let me try from the beginning. Remember that part in Snatcher where you're in the house, someone's gotten hurt, and there's a dog outside the window or whatever. I can't remember the exact details because it's been a really long time since I tried to play Snatcher. But remember that. There's more action in those few minutes of gameplay than there is in the last 3 hours of... And by action, I mean... You know, let's replace action with interesting world building, fun gameplay, and just an overall good, enjoyable pace. There's more examples of that in the first hour of Snatcher than there is in the first 3 hours of 2064 read-only memories. I forgot the name there for a second. That's pretty bad. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I'm not even going to bother going and talking to more people because it's seriously just going to lead to just more talking and more slow-paced stuff going on. And, you know, I really need to go... I need to go play Snatcher. I need to finish Valhalla and... God knows what else. So, yeah. I'm done. That's it. I'm leaving it here. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.